how am I supposed to tell my partner how is he going to understand what I've done? It is hell to stop when you are in that loop and that cycle, especially when self-harm is your only coping mechanism. You have self-harm scars. I've got scars on my arms and scars on my legs and scars in different places. I'm not ashamed of those scars anymore. Definitely used to be. I've had someone to sit down and talk about self-harm, about scars, about how to talk about self-harm, and I didn't, and that's why I'm making this video. So if you are someone that self-harms, or even if you're someone that's never self-harmed but wants to learn about it, then this video is definitely for you. Just a trigger warning, I'm not going to be going into any detailed images of self-harm or anything like that, or showing any self-harm fresh wounds, but I will be talking about self-harm quite in depth and being open and honest about it. So if that is something that you think might be triggering for you at the moment, then maybe this is not the right video for you at the moment. So I just want to clarify really quickly, I'm assuming that if you clicked on this video you already know what self-harm is, but just in case, or someone's here to learn, self-harm is any form of injury or harm that a person causes to themselves on purpose. It doesn't have to just be cutting. Not everybody who self-harms cuts. Any harm that somebody brings on themselves purposely. If you never self-harmed before, I can understand why it might be difficult to understand why somebody would want to self-harm. However, if you are somebody who has self-harmed or does self-harm currently, and you've ever heard it's attention seeking, why you're doing that, it doesn't make sense, any answer like this in response to finding out someone's self-harmed does not help. It only eats into the guilt that the person's already feeling, and it really is useless. There's just no point. I understand that how self-harm is portrayed in the media definitely does not help the situation in terms of misunderstanding. It is the same kinds of image that was shown over and over and over and over again. It's good that the media are trying to show self-harm and trying to get an open conversation about it, but the reality is anybody of any age, any gender, any sexuality can self-harm, not just young teenage girls. It's not just cutting, there's so many different forms of self-harm, and the idea that it's just this one specific way and this one specific group of people is so damaging. I've said this before. It means that people of different genders, sexualities, age brackets don't want to ask for help, and it also means that if you are self-harming in another way, one, you might not class it as self-harm, two, you might not know how to tell anyone because you don't think they will class it as self-harm, and it's just not useful. So I started self-harm when I was about 11, I would say, and I was self-harming for many years, and I went through a really large period of no self-harm, was in complete, I just say remission from self-harm, and I've gotten absolutely no idea what time is anymore because of COVID, but it was just before COVID hit, and I had a pretty bad relapse in my mental health in general. I was off work and I fell back into self-harm. I am back in remission. I haven't self-harmed for around 12 months, I would probably say it's been. Again, not the best of time, but I'd say it's been about 12 months. Now there's this idea that self-harm is for attention. Now I need to just clarify, self-harm is never for attention. Even if the person is self-harming to get attention, it's because they need help, not because they are just attention seeking. If somebody is self-harming, they are physically going against what is natural to harm themselves, and even if they've done it because they're trying to get attention of a parent or a family member or just anybody that sees it and can see that they are struggling, that still doesn't make them an attention seeker. I hate that word. I just don't, especially when it's around mental health. It's just not healthy, and then it leads to situations where unfortunately somebody passes away, and then you get a lot of people saying, oh, I wish they had said something, why couldn't we have done more? And it irks me. It really irks me. He is calling you an attention seeker. If somebody didn't expect to get upset in this video, if somebody is, if you're in school and you're being bullied, or you've got friends that don't understand, or you've got family that don't understand, and they're calling you an attention seeker, Just do not listen to those words mean nothing. There's so many charities and so many outlets now that you can go to for that support and that help. And I know that getting help is the hardest thing to do, but it is so worth it. So that is the first thing that I would say. Just don't give about what other people think. It's not about them. It's your body, it's your health, and it's your response to trauma, illness, mental health, your way to cope, and it's nobody else's business. And if they're not willing to be supportive or helpful, then they don't deserve a part in your life at all, and they need to be cut off. Now, that's not saying if somebody doesn't understand straight away, you should be cutting them out your life. It's not everybody is going to understand, especially people who've never experienced self-harm before. And it is normal for somebody to react in quite a shocked or overly concerned way. So you're probably thinking, well, how can I talk to someone about my self-harm if they could possibly react in an adverse way, or they might think it's attention seeking, or they might not understand why I'm doing it? Be completely honest. And I know that it's difficult. A lot of the time you will be surprised at how a loved one or a family member or friend reacts if you sit them down and talk about it. Quite often it's harder for a family member or friend to find out by accident, and then the concern and worry is there, but also the fact that it's being hidden and there's a lot of questions that you might not be willing to answer if you haven't been open about it. So the first thing I would say is be honest. Now, if you are honest and you are open and they still react badly, give them some time. Obviously that depends on what end of the spectrum they're at. If they've reacted badly, but it might just be because they're upset or concerned or worried about you, that's completely different to if they are just completely vile, nasty, laugh, that kind of situation. If we're talking about that kind of situation, you need to just cut that person out of your life because they do not care about you and they are no good for you. And that is harsh, but it is reality, unfortunately. But if they're on the side of the scale where they may just be coming to terms with it and upset and worried, just give them a bit of time, let them process it. If they still don't come back around and you're not really getting anywhere, go and seek help in places that you know that you will get support. It is so important that you seek the help that you need and that you deserve without judgment. And if you're not getting that help and support from your close family and friends, then you need to seek it elsewhere without being concerned about what they think. When I relapsed before COVID, I was mortified. I hadn't self-harmed for such a long time. I had complete control over it, didn't even have urges, or they were very few and far between. It was nothing that I was worried or concerned about, and I never thought that I would be going back to that ever. It was just not in my mind. And then when my mental health deteriorated and that began, I felt so ashamed. And it's so strange because when I had recovered from self-harm, I had spent some years being ashamed. I'd got over the shame and I understood that I was really ill as a young child into my teenage years, and that was just a symptom of my illness and it was nothing to be ashamed of. But then when I started again, especially I think because I had a good job, my relationship was literally the best relationship that I have ever been in and that I expect to be in for the rest of my life. I was happy. I was in the best place in my life that I had ever been in, hands down. And then I was self-harming and I just couldn't understand it. And then the fear of, oh, people around me are going to find out, what are they going to think? Because I wasn't that sick teenage kid anymore that people knew. I spent so many years being this really ill person, this vulnerable person. Like I said, out in school, I hated it. Home life was awful, school was hell, kids are nasty. And but I was over being that person. I wasn't that vulnerable, sick, mentally ill, bullied teenager anymore. And it kind of put me back to that, and I kind of was like, how am I supposed to tell my partner how is he going to understand? It was difficult, and I did tell him, and he didn't understand straight away, but he was willing to learn. He understood that I was ill. It was very obvious I'd been getting ill for some time, and he understood it wasn't me. It was difficult for him. He doesn't want to see any harm coming to me, and then to know that I was doing that harm to myself is difficult to wrap your head around, to accept. So it was difficult, but I was open and I was honest, and I also needed to be open and honest. There was a couple of times, people who self-harm will know, we are sneaky, but there were a couple of times where I did try to hide, and then I'd end up explaining, and he told me straight away, you need to go to the doctors, and I got on my medication. I used to see my doctor every week. She was amazing. I had to have that open and honest communication about it, and it also helped me stay accountable for it. Now, I'm not shaming anyone who's still struggling with self-harm, by the way. It is hell to stop when you are in that loop and that cycle, especially when self-harm is your only coping mechanism. So I completely understand that. I'm not shaming anyone. I just really wanted to get back to not being in that place, and because self-harm with me comes directly with being severely mentally ill and in the worst place, I just wanted to get out of that place. I wanted to get better, and him being there, understanding this is what I was struggling with, and being able to hold me accountable to it. So I think having an open and honest conversation is so important, and if that person is not supportive or is not willing to learn or not willing to understand, that person doesn't deserve to have you in their life. Out there that are understanding and that will be there for you when you need them to be, and you don't need to put up with someone who is not willing to be there for you. I'm a strong believer on educating yourself, whether that is educating yourself on how to take care of injuries after a self-harm episode, whether that is educating yourself on the help and support that's out there for self-harm, whether that's educating other people on self-harm. The more educated you are on the subject, the easier it will be to, one, take care of yourself, and two, beat the self-harm. But you have to want to do it. You have to be in a position where you're ready. But that's why I do say that if you are still in the cycle, you are still injuring yourself, please make sure that you're looking after your wounds or your injuries properly. People who self-harm are not necessarily suicidal, and that is another misconception. I've been suicidal and been self-harming, and I've also been completely not suicidal at all, but self-harmed. But there's still danger to self-harm. You need to know how to be taking care of yourself if you are not able or in a position to stop the self-harm, because I know it's not as simple as just saying, just stop doing it. That's not going to help you. And if you're somebody out there who wants to help a friend or family member, it won't help them. But getting them the proper information to be able to care for themselves will. And I know it sounds counterproductive, but would you rather them be doing that and knowing that they are properly taking care of themselves afterwards? Or would you rather them be hiding it and also not taking care of it because they don't know how to? It's a massive, massive issue that we need to understand and be able to talk openly about. This is a difficult thing to talk about, and people might not necessarily want me to talk about it. They just want to come at it as a point of, no, don't do it, shouldn't happen. But people need to, if people are doing it, it's the same thing with underage drinking. You're not supposed to, but people are doing it. So it makes sense for your kids to at least understand simple safety measures. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about was self-harm scars and feeling confident and not being worried about going out with your self-harm scars. Now, I want to say a massive shout out to Marie Sanchel, and she's Marie Rose, EEE, I'll leave her on the screen, on YouTube. Now, she helped me massively around self-harm and feeling confident, and I can't even explain how helpful she was. So you really do need to go over to her channel if you are someone who wants a bit of confidence and a better understanding as well of self-harm. I'm not ashamed of my scars anymore whatsoever. It does depend on the situation. Like if I was going for a job interview, say for example, I might not necessarily want to wear scars out, but it's not because I'm ashamed of them, it's because I want that interview to be entirely about why I am good for the job. I don't want any distractions from that. So it's not that I'm ashamed, it's just that I don't want any distractions. It wouldn't matter what, whether it's self-harm or other, I'd probably just cover up, and that is just personal choice. Now, I just want to clarify, I am a complete advocate for wearing your scars out and not caring, but I don't suggest going around with fresh cuts or fresh scars, simply because it can be triggering to other people. And as somebody who suffers with self-harm, you should be a bit more empathetic towards what other people might go through if they are not self-harming and are trying to not self-harm. To see a fresh cut, it can just be very triggering for people, and I don't recommend it. But in terms of scars, I really don't care anymore. I can go out without being concerned. It is difficult sometimes, people might ask you questions, and what I say about that is it depends how the question's being asked. If they're asking with genuine curiosity, sometimes I don't mind talking about it and answering it. If they are just being rude or they're just a bit weird, like I know a lot of people, I know Marie has mentioned before on her channel about people kind of feeling like it's a sort of chat up line. I don't get that at all, and I don't think that I would respond. I think I'd just say something funny, or you just walk away in general. Like, I just don't get it. It is entirely up to you what you disclose to anybody, because it's your body and you don't have to answer questions you don't want to answer, even if they are being polite and nice. You don't have to be rude back, but you don't have to disclose what they are. So it's entirely up to you, but don't be nervous about people asking questions, because you are in control of what you give back to that question. And I know that was one of my biggest fears of, what are people going to think, what are people going to say? But then I realised, and it took a long time, but I realised I'm in control of the response that I give, and it is my body. And I think that is the biggest piece of advice I can give. It's your body, you're in control of what you show, and you're in control of what you disclose about your body. So if you're worried that you're going to have to tell people about it, you don't. That you don't need to tell anybody, no matter how nice they ask you. In terms of wearing them out, if it was a scar from an accident, there's no difference between a scar from an accident or an injury that you might have suffered and the scars from your mental health. It just shows how strong you are as a person. I'm not saying that people that suffer with mental health disorders who don't have scars or don't have that many scars are not strong either. That's not what I'm saying. We can talk about things inclusively. Inclusively? Is that the right way to say that? Probably not. But I'm not saying either or for that, if that makes sense. But it's just a symptom of an illness, and unfortunately it's there forever. But it just shows what you've been through and what you survived and how strong you are, and it is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. And you don't need to let anybody else who has not walked a day in your life tell you what your scars do or don't mean, or whether you can wear a skirt or a dress or a pair of shorts, because they have not lived your life. You've lived your life, you know what you've been through, and you are strong. And that is all I've got to say on that. Now, I do have some previous videos on my channel, I I know I've got that. I just fidget, I can't help it. I do have some previous videos on my channel about self-harm. What I would advise is that they were from when I'd only just started my YouTube channel. And I know that I'm new on YouTube, but I mean, these were like fresh from the start, so they might be a bit difficult to watch, but there are some tips in there for helping prevent or delay self-harm. So I will leave them linked below as well. That's everything for now. If you've got any suggestions for any other videos, please let me know. I am going to be doing my London vlogs because I do go, as I film today is Tuesday, I'm going to London on Friday till Monday, and I'm also going to be at the Harry Potter Studios. So there will be multiple vlogs coming, which I'm very, very excited about. I've also bought a new mic, which should be really helpful because I know it'll be helpful with the vlog as well, just to make the sound quality better. But yeah, that's everything for now. Any suggestions, leave them down below. If you've got any questions, then please let me know as well. If you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and join the family we're building. And wherever that you are, I hope you have a lovely morning, day or night, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.